All right, you were just listening to Attorney General Keith Ellison, and you heard from Katie Bryant, Daunte Wright's mother. She spoke briefly. She's hugging the Attorney General right there. She said every emotion came rushing in. At the very end, the next part of this is sentencing, and the Attorney General was just asked, what sentence are you going to look for? And he said a fair one. He didn't say the max. He said a fair one, and he said it's going to be good that Daunte Wright's family gets to tell the judge in person, in their own words, how the loss of Daunte Wright is affecting their families. I want to bring back in our guests, and I want to start with Robert Boyce. Do you think the recklessness here that the jury was talking about had to do not just with the gun, but with the taser as well? Should she have even thought about firing a taser into that car at that moment?
No, I don't think that was in the jury's mind at all. I think that he was trying to get away, and you can use the taser too. And he did resist the one officer, and Officer Lucky, I believe, to get into the car. So I don't think the use of the taser came up was relevant in the case at all. So it's some tactics on the car stop was if they can get it back, they would change it. But other than that, I think it's the only thing that surprised me. He said he was when the defense counsel said basically he had the right to shoot, and I was his gun, and I was surprised at that. That was the only surprising thing I saw there. But the use of the taser, we want officers to use them. We don't want this to dissuade anybody from using a non-lethal force. So if we walk away from one thing on this trial in law enforcement, that is the main thing, that non-lethal forms of apprehension in this case are acceptable and should be used. However, better training is always the best policy in this.
Alex, 2 Minnesota juries have now convicted 2 white police officers. It's not something that we've seen a lot of in this country. So, Alex, I'm wondering what message you think that sends to the community, the Black Lives community, the Black Lives Matter community, the Black community at large across this country.
Well, Phil, I mean, you heard Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, there say that, I mean, this is a signal that there is accountability, right? And I think, for a community that, for all intents and purposes, has become the epicenter, the mecca, if you will, of this racial reckoning that we've had the last couple of years, having these 2 landmark cases after a Philando Castile or some of the other police-involved killings that they've seen, having these 2 landmark cases, high-profile cases that have rendered guilty verdicts after a diverse jury deliberated. I think that for many of the right supporters, many of the George Floyd supporters, I mean, this is where they had hoped this community would ultimately kind of get to a place where there was accountability across the board. I'm not saying that they were necessarily hoping for guilty verdicts on both charges, but certainly that there would be accountability regardless of your position or your station in life. And so, here with these 2 officers, Derek Chauvin and now Kim Potter being found guilty, for many of them, this is that symbol that they've been seeking.
We just saw a picture of Katie Bryant holding up a sign. She's been vocal before and during the trial. Let's listen, all 3 of us, to what she just said at the news conference after the verdict was read.
On the manslaughter 1, emotions, every single emotion that you could imagine just running through your body at that moment. I kind of let out a yelp because it was built up in the anticipation of what was to come while we were waiting for the last few days. And now we've been able to process it. We want to thank the entire prosecution team. We want to thank community support, everybody who's been out there that has supported us in this long fight for accountability.
She was asked toward the end of her speaking, what did she think of Kim Potter on the stand, Bernarda? And we all saw Kim Potter, contrite, very emotional on the stand, crying for quite some time. Katie Bryant wouldn't answer the question. She said, "I'd rather not answer that question." I want to know what you thought about her performance on the stand, and do you think it will affect the amount of time that she gets from the judge?
So that's exactly what it was. It was a performance. I did not think that she was genuine in her cries, because if you saw doing direct examination, that you didn't see any tears coming down her face. And also what you can remember from her testimony is doing direct and cross-examination, she was two different people. She came off as combative during cross-examination, where she didn't want to answer questions, and she also had attitude. And if she couldn't answer the basic question, the fundamental question, is a taser lighter than a gun, and you say, I don't know, this is a woman who was on the force for 26 years, I think it's disingenuous, and I think the jury definitely took that into account. Now, will Judge Chu use her testimony, her performance in front of the jury, take that into account during sentencing? It will depend on Judge Chu whether she does that. I will tell you that in the past, in cases that I have tried, homicide cases that I've tried, judges will know and people will know the policy that if a defendant does take the stand and to the judge's opinion lied on the stand, they will take that into account, because what the judge is saying is that the first step of rehabilitation is accountability. And if you can't accept your responsibility of what you've done, then you're not ready to be in society, and that should affect your sentencing. But we'll see on February 18th what she ultimately decides.
Robert, I asked Alex this question. I would like to ask it to you as a former member of law enforcement for all those years. The two verdicts, the Derek Chauvin verdict and the Kim Potter verdict, what message do you think that sends to law enforcement in an age where we have dash cam video and now body camera video in a lot of places where we didn't in the past?
Well, I think the two are wholly different. The George Floyd and Daunte Wright. Everybody who saw, and every single person I spoke, and quite a few actually, in law enforcement who saw Derek Chauvin act were repulsed by it and thought that it was more angry than probably the regular citizen would, because that's our profession, and that really spoke volumes to me. Kim Potter, a sympathetic person. I believe she was genuine, and she did apologize for it. However, I don't think tears are an adequate convincing thing that whether you have or not. But I will say that I think she made an egregious mistake, and she's never going to get past the fact that Dante's dead. And we've seen this before. This is not new. Each officer that went to trial who accidentally shot someone with their gun while thinking they're using a taser was convicted of manslaughter second degree. This is odd. This is manslaughter 1. So that's the issue here. So I think officers will go through this. We know what we're up against. We know we have to act responsibly and professionally. And what happens in Minnesota runs through the entire nation, because we felt it in New York, the George Floyd aftermath, and it was felt in every major city and everywhere across the country. So it's something that's a phenomenon that today's officers have to deal with. Technology, body-worn cameras, and generally speaking, you get more from an audio on a body-worn camera than you do from the camera itself, video, because the body's moving and it's below the eyes. So it's really tough, but you get a lot from the audio. I think what you saw from her was remorse, falling on the ground directly thereafter, and on the witness stand as well. So there is some sympathy towards her, but the Wright family has a measure of justice, and Mr. Ellison was exactly correct. It's a measure of justice. So that's where officers will take away from this. Two different, starkly different cases.
Understood. And Alex, with those, you covered both of those cases and then some. If there isn't a message here, Robert says because the cases are so different, there isn't a message to law enforcement. But what do you think the message is to both the black community in this country and to law enforcement, if there is any message in that direction?
Well, I mean, I do think Robert's right in that the facts of both of these cases are completely different. But again, it gets back crux of accountability. You heard Katie Bryant talk about it just a minute ago in the last soundbite that we played. We've heard it from Keith Ellison earlier on during the press conference, not trying to vilify law enforcement at all, but knowing that there is this standard, and because they are held in such high esteem, they will also that standard applies to instances of use of force, and here is the fruit of that. I think for the Black community in Minneapolis and elsewhere, again, this is at least the second, I'd say the third, if you include the Arbery trial, the third high-profile case this year where you've seen now at least 2 officers, all now 5 white individuals who have been convicted of killings of people of color, men of color. And for many folks in the Black community, this will be a sign that there is some accountability within the legal system, and I think for many of them that's going to be the takeaway from this case.
Yeah, and that really, Alex, has been the call since the beginning of Black Lives Matter, and even before Black Lives Matter existed, the community wanting accountability. And yes, the situations are very different in both of these cases, but maybe this goes one step in the right direction.
They would certainly hope there and say that this is a stepping stone.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. Bernardo Villalona, Alex Boucher, and Robert Boyce, thank you all for taking us through this.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.